This is the Gens Weekly Recap presented by Rapid Hockey Academy. Here is Matt Sosler.
Hey Gens fans, and welcome to this Gens Weekly Recap. I'm your host, Matt Sosler. The NAHL Generals hosted Maryland. Let's take a look at what went down. And less than a minute and a half in, Gens on the early power play. Ryan Gordon gets it on the doorstep from second star of the week, Jake Dunlap, that made the score 1-0 Northeast. And in the early third, Generals on the power play again. David Andreychuk is going to fire through to the traffic to give the Generals the lead again, 2-1. And midway through the third, Minahan snaps his stick and Bozer tips. That made it 3-1 in favor of Northeast. However, Maryland scored 2 unanswered in regulation and the game winner in overtime to take game number 1. And a look at some stats. Jake Dunlap, 2 assists. Ryan Gordon, Matthew Bozer, David Andreychuk, a goal each. Matthew Yeager, Jonathan Young, Liam McKinney, and Paul Minahan each with an assist. And Hugo Haas with 24 saves. And the very next day, early in the first period, Dunlap turns on the Jets and buries it to give the Generals yet again the early 1-0 lead. And the end of the first frame, 1 apiece. David Andreychuk gets it behind the net, brings it round, buries it. That made the score 2-1. And here in the early second, Liam McKinney from the point to make it 3-2. And about 4 minutes later, Minahan is going to find Dunlap shorthanded. Dunlap is the first General to score 2 shorties in a single game. That increased the lead to 4-2. And less than a minute after a Maryland goal, just over 2 minutes left in the period, Paul Minahan is going to fire here through the traffic and get it in. That makes it 5-3, and following 2 unanswered in the third period and in overtime, Generals on the 4-3 power play. Pitch and catch from Young to Dunlap to Boyson, who buries it on the one-timer, dismisses the class. That made it 6-5 and gave the victory to the Generals. And a look at some stats. Jake Dunlap, 2 goals, 2 assists. Paul Minahan, David Andreychuk, a goal and 2 assists each. Alexander Tatishny, Jonathan Young, each with 2 assists. Ricky Boyson, Liam McKinney, each with a goal. Adam Smith, Matthew Bozer, each with an assist. And Hugo Haas with 26 saves. And sticking with the NAHL Generals, looking forward to next year, it's time for the jersey reveal, as revealed earlier this week on General social media. Starting out with the home whites here, a bit of an homage to the first year of play with the Generals with the shade of blue. And now to the road navy is a key difference this year, the orange stripe across the middle. And now moving on to the jersey that everyone has been waiting to see, the third jerseys. They went with gray this year for the third jerseys. Next year, it will be black. It'll be similar to the Chicago Blackhawks third jerseys that they wore in the Winter Classic at Notre Dame Stadium against the Boston Bruins. You'll see the logo very similar to the Blackhawks logo, and then same thing with the stripes on the sleeves as well as on the bottom of the jersey. And those are your 3 jerseys for next season for the NAHL Generals. And now moving over to the NA3HL Generals, they also had an eventful week. It's draft week for the NA3HL. They had 2 picks. With their first pick, they selected Gunnar Arason, and with their second pick, they selected Lucas Bellig. Welcome to the Gens family. And now I'll look to the week ahead. The NAHL Generals will take on the Maine Nordiques. It'll be the first time that those 2 teams have met since early March, and the first time those 2 teams have met in Attleboro since early November. So definitely a whole lot to look forward to in that rivalry matchup. Be sure to tune into my interview with head coach Brian Erickson, exclusively available on the Northeast Generals app. Also be sure to follow the Generals at all of their social media channels as well. Again, that's going to wrap up this edition of the Gens Weekly Recap for everyone here at the Northeast Generals. I'm Matt Sosler. Thank you for tuning in, and roll Gens.